Hey everyone, Joe here, and I am going to try recording a video for the first time on YouTube because my friends have been encouraging me because I've just been publishing little bits on Instagram and they want a little bit of a deeper dive. So for context, I am building a web application, but I'm actually just building it to clarify requirements for my developers. I have some proper developers on the front end and back end side, and what I'm doing, I'm playing the more kind of product management role, and I want to clarify requirements for them. So the way I do that is by building an actual web application that's functional and usable, that simulates various scenarios so that they can have clarity on the functional requirements, like, hey, when the user clicks this, this should happen. You know, when this is updated over here, they should see it over here, that kind of stuff. And then, of course, the actual visual elements as well. So, you know, I'll spend time making things look nice. I'll pick the colors, how rounded of the corners things should be, and things like that. So I guess I'll just show you a little bit about my environment right now. On the left here, we have Cursor Composer. This is a fork of VS Code. I think it's cursor.com. Yes, okay, so AI code editor. It's a fork of VS Code with a lot more native support for LLMs, large language models like GPT or Claude. When it comes to coding, I really like using Claude, the 3.5 Sonnet model. Yeah, so, and of course I access that through an API though, and we'll get that later. Another tool you're gonna see me using is called Superwhisper. I absolutely love this tool. It's voice to text, and this one only works on Mac, but I'm sure there's similar tools on other platforms, and you'll just see me use it, but you'll see that I like to talk to my computer, like I'm talking to you now, instead of typing, because I'm kind of slow at typing. And this just makes it a lot easier for me to get information to my computer when I'm describing requirements that I want the AI to build. You'll probably see that I also make heavy use of keyboard shortcuts. I don't like having to use my mouse. I feel like every time I touch my mouse, I'm wasting time that could be spent somewhere else. So I try to really get into keyboard shortcuts and stuff like that. So I'll effectively navigate with my keyboard as much as I can, and then write with my voice by doing voice to text instead of using my keyboard. So you'll see that. Okay, so here's Cursor on the left, and one keyboard shortcut I have is NN, which just turns into npm run dev, and this just starts the Next.js, which is the framework, the front end framework that I've been using to prototype, and that's what's running over here. So you'll see this is running on localhost. So you know, if I go to a page, it should be. You should see, yeah, it's kind of loading that. Okay, so here's an example of a page. So this is all local. I could turn off Wi-Fi and this would mostly work. Okay. I'm just going to show you how it worked now because people have been asking me to do this. All right. So this is a prototype. There's actually no backend. For the developers, I don't even have proper state management. I'm not using ZooStand or anything like that. So I probably could have done that better. But again, this is just to clarify requirements for my developers. This code is not going to actual customers. There's a whole separate repository, project on GitHub, where my devs are building the real thing. And my goal is that once I catch up enough on giving requirements, I might even be able to help them there directly instead of having the separate repo. But this is for prototyping. It's been working so far. Cool. So what do I want to do? Well, the first thing I'll just show you. So what I want to design now is, say you're applying for citizenship through Ancestry, and you had to answer a bunch of questions for this eligibility quiz, and when you first actually start this this plan to see if you could be eligible for citizenship through Ancestry, the eligibility status is going to be not verified or needs verification, right? Because there's a whole bunch. We don't know if you're eligible yet. We need to know your ancestry history, when people got married, naturalized, were born, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but then say there is, a status where they are eligible. Okay, great, they're eligible. That does some stuff. This here, obviously the user won't be able to just choose whether or not they're eligible or not, that this would be programmatically determined. But I made this little thing so I can easily design different states, right? So for this state, the project today, I want to make it so like my developers need to know, hey, if they're not eligible, what do we show here, right? There's no point in showing, hey, take this next step because you're not eligible, right? We don't want the user to spend time or money on something that isn't going to be fruitful for them. So, but I made this anyway, just to illustrate the state. So I made it so that, if you click not eligible, the plan status is now not eligible, and all I have so far is that we get rid of these two cards here at the top, and we've got this placeholder, right? And and I had AI just kind of, you'll see how I do it, but I had it kind of come up with that. So this is on the overview page where I think somewhere we have some code that says like, if you're not eligible, then you're not eligible for this citizenship through this ancestor, right? Okay, now what I have is a placeholder, and my job for today is to design the reason, like put in there the reason why someone's not eligible. So to do that, what I had done before is I had used Obsidian to kind of mock up some logic. I was actually originally thinking of putting this on a different page, but what I had done in Obsidian, which is it's an awesome local first note-taking tool, but it also has a plugin for Excalidraw. If you've used that, it just lets you sketch stuff out. This is just like, it's kind of like PowerPoint, but a little bit, I don't know, more my style. Okay, but anyway, so I had already written down this logic, right? Because for an Italian citizenship, there's a lot of if-thens if someone's eligible, right? So if your ancestor naturalized, before the next of kin was born, then that next of kin doesn't inherit citizenship from the ancestor who was born in Italy, because before 1992, if someone naturalized, that meant that they gave up their Italian citizenship in the eyes of Italian law, right? So in this case, we kind of have a mock family tree where the applicant is Morgan Stark, the father is Tony Stark, and the grandfather is Howard Stark. And this is simulating Morgan applying for Italian citizenship through her grandfather, Howard. So the deal is Howard, came to the U.S. And he naturalized at some point, and the question was, did he naturalize before or after Tony was born? Because that determines if Tony is eligible for Italian citizenship, right? Or effectively, if Tony is a citizen in the eyes of Italian law, just not registered yet. So that's kind of like the logic we have to handle, right? We have to look at, okay, an ancestor's naturalization date, a kind of next of kin or the ancestor's child, their birth date, and I guess those are the pretty much the two date inputs that we need to know to determine. For this case, this is a simplified case, but if this person is eligible for Italian citizenship, assuming other things that they're eligible in all the other ways as well. But would naturalization break their citizenship? That's what we're trying to figure out. So the way I did this is I just I wrote the logic in here. So you could do this, you could write this on paper, you could use whatever tool you want to draw logic like this, right? You could also just type it out in dot points, right? If then blah, blah, blah. You don't have to really know how to code or anything like that. It's just like, okay, well, what are the conditions, right? It's kind of like a flow chart that I kind of have. So I have it in this format, but this could probably work for all sorts of formats, right? Okay. A little tea break before we get started. Okay. So I want to conditionally show one of these messages with the appropriate variables piped in over here where it says placeholder. So here's where I'm going to use AI. The first thing I'm going to do is, and this just became possible with Claude Sonnet 3.5, the model that I like to use. This just became possible with the Claude models. here at the beginning of November 2024, maybe a couple days before. But it can do vision processing now. So that means you can give it screenshots instead of just text. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to screenshot this, and I'm going to paste it over here into Cursor Composer. You see that I have Claude selected. And what I'm going to try to do is give the AI the screenshot so it kind of sees the logic, and I'm going to talk to it to see and to try to tell it that, hey, based on these conditions, that's what I want to show up over here and replace the placeholder. Now, since I'm doing a screen recording right now, I don't know if that's going to hijack my microphone, so my voice to text doesn't work. I haven't tested that yet. Let's see. If it doesn't work, then I'll just type it. Okay. All right, let's see. So I've got a keyboard shortcut, of course, to trigger the voice to text. Bear with me. Test. Okay. See this screenshot, which is logic that I want to use to determine what message we show the user who is not eligible on the overview page, where it says they're not eligible for whatever citizenship through their ancestor. So this obviously depends on the ancestor's naturalization event, if they have it, and the their child's, the next in the lineage line's birth date, if we have it. So can we build this and just make it so that this is the message that appears in where the placeholder is now as a function of the of those dates? Any questions before we get started? So then I'm going to hit the button again to finish the voice to text. I'm running this on a local model, and so you can see it just takes what I said and put it out here. My brain is wired, so I do more mental processing when I talk. Some people say that's an extrovert thing. So it's just easier for me to talk, and yeah, I don't know. It works. It's actually faster for me than typing. So let's see what happens. So you'll see the AI is like, maybe I'll make this a little bit bigger for you. I just send you input logic. Correct. Correct. Child born before naturalization eligible. Correct. Correct. Good. This is nice. So you can see it's kind of repeating what it saw in the screenshot, right? So it's like, okay, my weird little if-else squigglies here, it was able to visually parse that and be like, okay, yeah, I get what you're going for here, right? Yeah. And you'll notice I sometimes like talking to the AI. I say, hey, any questions before we get started? Okay. And that, I don't know, that just helps me make sure we're on the same page. Okay, so you can see what it did here is it opened up multiple files. So it went, because I have a ton of files, right? This is a Next.js application. I got a bunch of components, a bunch of pages in different places, some utility functions, right? AI did build all of this, by the way. I probably wrote less than 50 lines of code, and there are, I don't know, thousands of lines of code in this application. But so this is how it works, right? And so this is using Cursor Composer. And you activate this you do need a Cursor Pro subscription for a couple reasons. And there might be other tools that can do this too. I'm curious to check out Zed. But anyway, I'm using Cursor Composer with the Pro. It's $20 a month. And I am using my own API credits on Claude Sonnet, but it does come with some of that too. So that's just kind of the mechanics. But yeah, that's what's going on here. So that's what, how do I get this thing out of the way? That's what this environment is. This is the Cursor Composer panel of Cursor Compose. So you can see it. I think I gave it context to some files. Actually, I guess just one file. I was like, here's the page we need to update. And it's like, okay, well, first we need to update this utility function. So it updates this utility function. You can see, wait, what the? Did it write all that? Did it make a new? Oh, it's made a whole new file. Oh, okay. So we didn't even have this file before. Okay, so it's making a new eligibility utils function from scratch. Okay, sometimes it decides to make a whole new file. I don't usually like it when it does that, but okay, fine, whatever. I hope to not have to use this designs repo forever anyway. Okay, cool. So it decided to make that. All right, and then it says let's update the overview component to use this logic. Where's oh right, that's in the page. Right, and so it it's kind of like setting up variables, right? Okay, this is the ancestor. He's the or she the person furthest out in lineage, and then the child is the person next in lineage, right? Which makes sense. This is the person furthest out in lineage. This is the next person. Blah blah blah. Okay, it kind of looks right. I don't look at the code super detailed, but I'm like, all right, cool. It's going to replace the placeholder with some text, and it's made this get eligibility message. That'll probably pipe that through. And you can see here like where stuff was changed, right? So green is added, red is deleted. Okay, it added this utility function to determine the eligibility message, which I guess makes sense because to have all that code on this page, this page is like a template. You know, it's not much more than kind of HTML. It's got some logic, but the whole point is like it's about the layout and stuff. So it makes sense that this kind of detailed logic would be in another file. So I get that. One tip, by the way, I am using TypeScript, and I have found it extremely beneficial both for my own mental organization as well as for the AI to kind of have an idea of how we're using different data structures in the application, to have a types.ts file. So these are all your types. So I don't really know why it had to modify person here, but oh, I see. Okay, it's trying to add a birthday and naturalization date to a person, and that's actually incorrect because the way it should work is we have people, and people have events, and the date is at the event level. So, for example, in here, yeah, I've got, where is it? Oh, person event. Yeah, a person event has a type, a date, a location. I'm talking about the date for a birth and a naturalization. So we do not want the AI to be like adding stuff to the person interface. I'm going to correct it here because then you have a birth date on the person and you have a birth date on the person's birth event and you have duplicate data. That gets messy. So I'm going to try to reject the changes here on types. This kind of sounds okay. I'm just going to hit accept. And of course, it made this new file. Now it's got a bunch of bugs because I'm not letting it. That naturalization date doesn't exist on the person. I'm gonna hit accept anyway and just try to fix it after. That mostly looked good, except you tried to modify the person interface on types by adding a birthday and naturalization date there. That's not how it works. People have events, and there's like a type of event, like a birth, and those events have like the person event interface where there is a type and a date. So what we want to look at is the date of the event on the person, which is not a parameter on the person themselves. I'm going to give you access to the types file so you can see that. And I'm also going to give you access to another file that shows kind of how we get the event data. So you see what I did there is I gave it access to the types file. It just makes way better decisions when it knows these things. Because if it kind of looks across all this, it'll be like, oh yeah, why would I update the person? That's probably not the right way to do it. Naturalization and birth is an event. It might not have gotten it, but giving it context sometimes helps. Now, I want to give it an example of like where I pulled this page is kind of a mess. I actually built that before I got into all this stuff. But there's another page where I render some information about events. So I just want to give it that as an example. So these are other pages that I built in the exact same way that you're seeing me now, where I just talk to the AI, I give it feedback, we have some back and forth. And it's a lot faster usually because I'm not, filming myself for YouTube. Okay. So I'm trying to find this component. I think it's called document preview, which actually maybe isn't the most proper name. That wasn't great for, what do you call it, domain-driven design. But hey, that's what I got for now. Check out this document preview file for an example of how we get event data. Okay. I don't know that it needs this, but I like to give it context. It does use more context with the AI, so it does cost you a little bit more money. I don't know, like maybe if I include this file, maybe it's going to cost me another, like, I don't know, 5 to 10 cents, I suppose, in API credits. This is because I have my own API key in here. But I don't know. Oh, that's the wrong file. I was going to give it access to this one, where I kind of have some events, right? Oh, no, geez, I'm sorry. I'm clicking stuff. This file. Okay, yeah. Yeah, okay, cool. But I think this is probably useful context for it to have, so it's probably worth it's a small file. It's probably going to be like 3 cents, so I think it's worth it. So I'm going to give it access to that file. And I'm going to say, yeah, okay, check out this document preview. Oh, no. Yeah. I'm also giving you access to user.json, which kind of shows the events array that we're importing to these people. Let's see what happens. Yeah, see, it ostensibly has more context. All right, we don't need to be in there. Those were just examples. Hopefully it'll go in here and fix its errors, and it did. So it knew that it was getting a bit screwy. I'm going to move my little head over here some other way. I don't know if I like myself over there, but whatever. Okay, so yeah, I mean, the fact that there's no TypeScript errors, there's no squigglies, like the squiggly underlines that you'd see in like whatever Microsoft Word or something from back in the day. It's kind of the same thing in code, right? Like it'll let you know if something's really screwed up. Okay, I don't know, let's try it. No squigglies. Let's hit OK. So I'm like, all right, let's just test. Let's see what happens. Quick overview. Why does it still say placeholder? I thought we replaced that code. Let me do a hard refresh. Control-Shift-R. Oh, okay. Because Anthony was born before Howard naturalized, they should be able to inherit citizenship. So actually, this is an eligible case, isn't it? Which I guess kind of makes me think. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's right. I don't want it to break the logic. So maybe it didn't make sense for me to do this thing because they actually are eligible for citizenship. So I guess what I really should have, I shouldn't have had it be a function of this. I should probably have written that differently. But anyway, let's stick to the task here for the video. All right. Well, let's see if this works. So because Anthony, so Tony here, I've got like this idea of like a nickname and stuff like that, right? So that's why it's saying Anthony instead of Tony. Well, let's test this. I didn't build this interface. I didn't actually build the UI to properly edit events yet. So the way for me to test this is I'm actually going to have to go into the user.json file, which I used to kind of prototype and scaffold out this family tree. And I'm just going to manually change. Let's see. We've got the date here. March 15th, 1971. And then Tony was born 1970. So let's say he naturalized in 1969. Then Tony shouldn't be eligible because that would have resulted in Howard losing his Italian citizenship. Now, I know because of the way I built this, I got a bunch of local storage stuff. So it has to regenerate the whole family tree and all that. So I'm going to do two things. I am going to clear local storage. And yes, I made this little dev bar with AI just because I didn't want to deal with other stuff. Yep, okay. Now, and I'm restarting the server. And I'm going to run this again. And then if that cleared local storage, I'm going to refresh. It might take a while longer to load because it has to regenerate. It has to re-import the family tree, regenerate all the tasks and stuff like that. And yeah, just refresh once or twice here. Okay, it's probably still regenerating those tasks in the background. I have a whole bunch of task generation logic. It looks at the family tree and determines like all the things that need to happen. Okay, cool. Good. So I still made this manual thing, but this is for me to test the logic. So let's see if it made a difference. Good. Because Howard naturalized before Anthony was born, Anthony is not eligible for citizenship through Howard. There it is. So that is one way that I use AI to code. Effectively, now I know this took like a half an hour, and that's because I was talking a lot. I'd like to think that if I wasn't talking so much, I probably could have done this in like 3 to 5 minutes. Anyway, but there's an example. There's an example of how I use AI to code, how I troubleshoot certain things, how I give the AI context, based on what I think would be useful for it. And it's just like thinking about a person. Like, think you have an intern, right? And you're like, hey, they don't know anything about your application. They don't know anything about your code base. And maybe you're not technical, maybe you don't code or something, right? But it's just information, right? Think like, imagine that you like the way the sink works in one of your bathrooms, and you're like, I like how this works. I don't know how it works. I don't know what's going on underneath the cabinet or whatever, or behind the walls with the plumbing, but I like how this works. And then say you have another bathroom and you're like, well, I don't like how this sink works. I want this sink to be more like that sink. Maybe I want the pressure to be the same, or maybe I want it to, have some other features. You don't have to know how to engineer it yourself. You don't have to know, the mechanics of the plumbing or the material science or whatever. But you can just say, if you hire, a plumber or, someone that remodels houses, you could be like, hey, see how we did it in that bathroom? That's what I want here, right? So you still give an example, even if you don't understand what makes that example work under the hood. Same with an AI, right? You'd be like, all right, I don't know why it works over there, but I want this to work like that. And in the process, you learn. So I didn't know these languages like TypeScript, or I didn't know anything about really much of this stuff at all. I have a basic understanding of logic, data structures, and just like if-then statements. And like, okay, for information to show up here, it has to come from somewhere. So where does that come from? What does it go through? So I think a lot in flows, and it's kind of, you can kind of think about it that way. Like, if you go to a page, these imports, it kind of is a flow. It's like, oh, it was in that file, and it's now flowing into this file, right? And so that helps you think like, okay, like, how did this information show up over here? Well, it must have flowed into this page from this file. And then maybe you go into that file, and you're like, yeah, how does it know that, this is a grandpa? Oh, it's a get relationship function. Okay, so it came from there, but how does it know what a person is? Oh, it imports the person, so it came from there. Oh, okay, that's where it knows that a person has a nickname, So you can kind of think in terms of flows, and that helps you think about, what files might it have to access? Is like, where did this flow kind of happen? All right, there's my first video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what kind of content you'd like to see. Thanks.